Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the SCELZI Says. I'm Joe Costello, and this is part 2 of our big email show. Gary, how you doing?
I'm getting recharged here, ready to go for another round.
Here we go again. Your emails, folks, and if you want to send us one, by all means, Bobby at CompetitionPlus.com. Bobby Bennett, the great editor of CompetitionPlus.com. Send it over to Bobby. Bobby will feed it to us, and we'll use it on one of the future editions of the SCELZI Says. Now back to the emails. There are plenty. This one coming from Eric, and his first point was about 1,000-foot drag racing. We covered that pretty heavily. So let's move on to his other points, which are involving the countdown. The countdown sucks and should be eliminated ASAP. Why does NHRA have to follow NASCAR in everything they do? Why are they afraid to stay with our heritage? Drag racing has a lot of unique elements and should remain that way. The countdown takes away the importance of early season races and artificially punishes drivers who do well consistently all year long. While I understand the countdown automatically guarantees perceived drama every season, the natural drama that occurs under the old point system cannot be topped. Yes, I understand there will be some seasons where the titles will be locked up sooner. So what? Says Eric.
I was one of the worst ones to criticize NHRA for not doing anything. Status quo, plain vanilla, blah, 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 blah. When they came out with the countdown, I absolutely praised them, and to a lot of rhetoric from my competitors. What are you doing? You're kissing their butt, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, wait a minute. They made a move. Not only did they make a move, they made a bold move. And you know what? If that's going to bring more fans and more people in the stands because of the excitement that the countdown brings, then bring it on. Whether I like it or I dislike it, they made a move. And I'm not going to criticize them for making a move because I criticize them for never making a move. So do I like it? Yeah, I do. At the beginning, I thought, well, okay, I agreed with what this gentleman said about ruining the guy that's good all the way through. But we know what the rules are. We know what it takes place right now. So if you want to try some things during the year and you're staying in the top 10, and you always want to be at the top of the top 10, so winning does have an advantage to you, because you start a little higher when the countdown starts. I disagree. I think we've seen some of the most exciting racing here lately. We're not watching Alan Johnson run off with this thing, even though he's won it last year, and Tony Schumacher, the only two that have won here in the last few years, and Dixon, but with the same two owners. But at least it's making it interesting. We're giving these other guys a shot at taking it away. The end result's still the same, and I believe the end result would have stayed the same. Matt Hagan and John Force went at it 2 years ago. This year it was Matt Hagan. He went at it in a dramatic deal and ended up winning the race. I think this was everything we were looking for, other than Greg Anderson and Jason Lyons stuck up pro stock by killing everybody. And I make that as a joke. I still say that the countdown is a big thing. I think it draws interest. I think a lot of people love to watch it, and they pay a little bit closer attention to the sport. My opinion only. I think it's a good thing, and I'm glad they did it. And I think NHRA needs to do a lot more things that bolder to make things happen.
Totally agree, 100%. Coming from the perspective of a media person doing the drag racing talk radio on WFO radio, you need something to talk about and different phases of it. And NHRA didn't follow NASCAR. NASCAR followed the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and the NBA. American culture, generally speaking, is about the regular season and the playoffs. And NASCAR created their own playoffs, and the NHRA said, you know what? This is good. We need a bonus phase, the playoffs, where people know that this means something big, and we can promote it, and we can hype it, and guys like Joe Costello can talk about it, and things will be reset. I absolutely like it. It definitely does change the game a little, but I think ultimately it changes the game for the better.
Agreed.
Myself. Now, Eric has another good point, though, which regards the U.S. Nationals. The U.S. Nationals needs to be rescued from oblivion. NHRA should restore its glory by making the purses the highest of the season, the point structure the highest, etc., just like in the past. But cut down the number of days. It's way too long. He typed that out. Nothing wrong with 4 qualifying runs and normal eliminations just 1 day later, says Eric.
I kind of got to agree.
Me too.
I got to agree with everything he said. We start on the pros start on Friday. We get a Friday night qualifying session, which you come out of the box and you shoot that Friday night hero run is what we used to call it. Okay, that's done. We don't run at night. So to me, that's a waste of money and time. We run Saturday, 2 runs, Sunday, 2 runs. And so that gives you 5 runs. I think it's a waste. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Agree about the money. The money is more. They do have a bigger purse. I think it needs to be doubled from what they got. I believe it's $75,000 to win. They don't have the specialty races anymore, which I think was a big thing for Indy to have the extra days for the Bud Shootout and things like that. We don't have that anymore. I still think we need a specialty race like they used to do with the Winston, that we ran for $100,000 or $200,000 or things like that. We've got to have those big money races, whether they're points races or not. A prime example, I'm getting off base here, is the 4-lane deal. I believe needs to be a $1 million race and do the 4-lane thing with no points involved, not a points race, a one-off deal and something totally different. But the U.S. Nationals is the U.S. Nationals, and I think that it's gotten away from it. Why should it be so special? Because you've got way too many hours of television that basically it's too much. To me, it bores me. I can't sit in front of a TV that long and watch all those hours. I think you condense it, you make a great show, and you make it worth sitting down for a couple hours to watch front to back and not want to get up to go to the restroom or for a commercial break. Money needs to be better. The points need to be better. I agree with him. Something needs to be done to make the U.S. Nationals the U.S. Nationals. And the facility needs definitely needs a facelift.
Yeah, I covered Indy for the first time a couple of years ago, and it is a very, very long event. It costs a lot of money no matter what level you're at to be there. And, as far as how much money, look, the U.S. Nationals is our Super Bowl, it's our Daytona 500, it's our whatever. It has to stand out from the rest somehow. I'll let the powers that be decide how, but money is definitely a big way. Everybody loves to talk about how much money the Daytona 500 winner gets. Oh, so-and-so $1 million. That's a big part of it. But what about the double points, Gary? They used to do double points. Is double points too much? With it being the last race, think of how that could shake up the countdown. Somebody in 13th, say, last year, Terry McMillan, you may remember, he blew up and didn't make it. A guy like that could come from nowhere and shock the world making the countdown. If they did double points, that might be a good thing.
I think it's the same as the countdown. Do you realize the drama that it's going to bring to the U.S. Nationals? And what is the reason we're doing this for? And what would be the reason to make the U.S. Nationals the U.S. Nationals? Double points would be huge. I mean, that would make a hero, or it could make you a zero. And if you're hanging around at the bottom and you're not producing, do you really deserve to be in the countdown? And if someone comes alive right then, maybe you do need to be in the countdown. So double points isn't a bad thing. Again, I didn't criticize them for coming up with a countdown, but I am criticizing them for doing nothing. And the U.S. Nationals is something special with heritage. And I think you could shorten it up by at least a day. And make 3 runs on Friday or Saturday if you needed to. That might not be a bad thing, or on Sunday. Saturday would probably be the better day, but double points, huge. And please, let's spend some money. Come on, NHRA. Spend a little dough on your premier racetrack, and let's do something there to make that thing the crown jewel. Bruton did it. Hell, sell the place to Bruton. He'll tune it up.
All right, next question. This one coming from Bill. Mr. SCELZI, first, great idea that a man of your stature and influence offers to take our concerns to the man. Thanks. It's like he's calling you the Godfather here.
Yeah. Hey, I'll get thrown out of there just the same as anybody else, believe me. They'll put closed in front of the door in NHRA when I walk up.
First, what I like about the way NHRA runs the organization. See, this guy's starting off positive, not all negative, positive things. The well-run and organized national events, that is very true. The variety of national events venues, from down home, such as Brainerd and Maple Grove, to polished, such as the Strip, Las Vegas, and Route 66, and the continuing effort of bucks down teams that compete in full throttle classes. Now, the areas he'd like to see an improvement. Well, the first thing he said, of course, was the return to 1320. The second thing he says is the NHRA and teams that compete in pro stock need to make radical changes that make this class relevant relevant again. The fact that the stand's empty these days when the class makes its way to the water box says there's a problem. The cars are cookie cutter, deviating too much dimensionally from their production counterparts. The current engine specification is equally antiquated. If this class had at least some resemblance to its production car brethren, perhaps the manufacturers, including Toyota and Nissan, would take a greater interest in it, along with the fans. Plus, parity and closeness finishes are overrated. Racing is about kicking the other guy's or manufacturer's ass, not staged photo finishes through technical specs. What do you think about that, Gary, as a nitro guy?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Pro Stock has a lot of innovation in it. It is a unique vehicle, but I can't argue with what he's saying. And I'm going to tell you something, whether I agree with it, disagree with it or not. How many emails, Joe, did we get saying that they need to make Pro Mod a professional class?
Most
now,
of them.
I mean, almost every email somewhere in there, it said something about making Pro Mod a professional class. Now, I don't understand. I've been an alcohol funny car guy and an alcohol dragster guy all my life. I felt that was our feeder series to the fuel guys. Also, not only with drivers, but also with tuners, especially with the injected nitro thing, because the pro classes and the nitro funny car and dragster, you're limited to who can really tune these things to make things happen. I mean, we've got a few elite guys, and that's who's it, and we're done. But Pro Stock, I think, is a great class. I think it's a unique class, but we need to do something. And what it is, I can't say because I'm not the guy with any answers, and I'm going to tell you when I don't know shit about it, and I don't know what, but I do know that this emailer is absolutely correct. We need to do something. No class does the stands need to clear out in the professional categories. They need to be sitting there glued to their seats. Now, whether it's making body style changes, getting Toyota and all that, I'm a big fan of all that. I don't know what it takes to get them involved because, you're going to hear, well, this is this is that. But we've got Toyota's name on a lot of the fuel cars, and all they do are the tow vehicles. They're obviously not a Toyota engine under the hood or under the body or in the frame rails of a top fuel dragster. So, yeah, I agree. Something needs to be done. Pro Stock is a class that had a lot of prestige back in the day. You had a small Oldsmobile. Glidden had his Thunderbird that was a bad Jose. We need that bright. Iaconio and Shepard had the Camaros. Something needs to happen to get that in there because I think there still should be some rivalries in there. And bring Toyota, Nissan, Lexus, bring them all in there. The more the merrier. What to do that? God, I don't know. I really don't.
Well, it's funny you mentioned when you were talking, I was thinking about I love Pro Stock. Pro Stock's one of my favorite classes. And when did I come up and really start going to big professional drag races? Lee Shepard, Frank Iaconio, Bob Glidden, Warren Johnson, different manufacturers. Every car looked exactly like its counterpart that was in the showroom. You had manufacturers represented. There were rivalries. They went back and forth. It was great. Cars, wheels up starts. Not that they're bad now, but there's GXP Pontiacs out there. I'm a Pontiac guy. I love Pontiacs. I have a Pontiac race car. Pontiac doesn't exist anymore. It's taken them forever to get the Camaros on the racetrack. The Camaro's been around since like 08. It's 12. We're finally going to see the first Camaros on the racetrack. I just think that there's been a big stagnation. And I love the sound of a 500 cubic inch Pro Stock engine, but there are a lot of people that have been advocating out there, Gary, definitely for fuel injection. You can't get a lawnmower without fuel injection on it.
Yep,
but also
exactly.
Maybe a power adder, maybe a turbocharger, maybe twin turbochargers, maybe something. How about something? Do something. And it's just, it's kind of a class that is in stagnation at this point. But I still love it. I want to say I love it. And the drivers, I just, something needs to happen.
It does. And I think, I love Pro Mod because to me, Pro Mod is an alcohol funny car. I mean,
With
maybe
doors.
even squirrelier if that's possible. But what we need to do, I think, and even though the variations are needed, the older cars and all that stuff, I think it needs to be newer stuff. And the reason I say that is to get the manufacturers involved. But again, make them look like a normal car. Make them look like a Camaro. Make them look like a Camry. Make them look like a Celica or whatever the hell they need to look like. Or the Mustang. Make it look like that. I don't know about getting the variation with a supercharger and a turbocharger, but I'm going to tell you, you put either one of those things on there and you're going to get some excitement. You're going to get that thing on the wheelie bar and you're going to get that thing when they pull a handle to grab a gear. It's going to turn sideways and want to go to the fence or the center line. And I think that might be what we're missing there in Pro Stock to make these things really happen and keep those people in the seat. And then you're going to kill two birds with one stone. You just woke up Pro Stock and you just kind of moved an interbred pro mod in with them. That could be an answer. This guy may have just turned a page on something that needs to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, next one coming from Roger. And this is a little long. I'm going to try to paraphrase here and there, but he makes some great points. Starts off in kind of a strange area. First, he says, where do I begin? Here is the list. I have been an NHRA member since 1985. Some items have been in place since the 60s, but no major rules changes since the 80s. His first point, I don't know what I think. Fix the timing system. The ET should be from when the green light comes on till the car reaches the finish line. The casual observer does not care about reaction times. They want to watch a race and see who gets to the finish line first. The current timing system was put into effect in the 60s with flag starts, was at E-Town a couple of years ago when Ashley Force lost a race on a hole shot, and an 8 to 10-year-old girl behind me shouted, how can she lose if she had a faster time? Now try to relate reaction time to an 8 to a 10-year-old. Do you think she is coming back for another race? Name another race that times you when you move, not when the starter's gun goes off or the flag drops. First to the finish line should have the fastest time, could still track reaction times for reference, and as we know, reaction time is partly affected by how you stage your car. Bottom line, first to the finish line wins and has fastest time. What do you think about that?
Well, he's right.
That's a tough one.
He is right. You know, being a driver all my life, the only thing I ever heard about was reaction time. That was our big part, especially in the pro ranks, because whether the car smoked the tire or not really wasn't of our doing unless the car got out of the groove. That car was going to smoke the tire when it pulled out from underneath that awning at the trailer, according to the tune-up and the track conditions. So, but as far as making it easy for someone, you know, that's the problem with drag racing, and that's the problem with staggered starts in the sportsman ranks. Hey, I don't understand this running you down. You broke out. You went too fast. I thought drag racing was all about speed. You know, that's a difficult situation. He's absolutely right on this reaction time thing. You know, it's hard for a fan to relate, a new fan, reaction time. To change the system, we're looking for bold moves from NHRA. That would be a bold move. Whether that could happen or not, I doubt it, because we talk about traditionalists. It's been done this way for 100 years, and I think it's going to be done for 100 years after. But I think he's got a valid point, and I understand exactly what he's saying. And it took my children a little bit to understand that too, except they learned really quick when their dad was pissed when he got beat on a hole shot. They learned what a hole shot was in a hurry and knew that his dad got beat by one. They didn't want to be around for a while.
Well, let me ask you. Let me delve into that, because we're both talking for bold moves. But is this a move that you would make, Gary?
No,
me either.
I wouldn't make this move. No, but he's got a valid point.
He does, especially when he compares it to other racing.
I'm not saying he's spot on. I think there's other things that would have to be done way before this that we could do to fix the sport. But I know exactly what he's talking about. I do. But would I do it? Absolutely not.
Well, here's where I come down on it. First of all, 8-year-old girl or 10-year-old girl, if the parent explains to the child what the rules of the game are, they will learn it. And I think they're all capable of learning. I look at it differently. I look at that as a signal to everyone in the grandstands that is knowledgeable that Ashley either did a poor job or got beaten by a better driver that round. That is a badge of honor for the driver that won with the slower elapsed time. And how would you ever know that? Hole shot victories are a big part of drag racing. How do you know? How do you know when two outlaws in an old western town, how do you know when one of them had a better reaction time? Because the other guy is sitting on the ground dead. Well, in drag racing, we can't do that. And so when you see a slower elapsed time on the board, get the win light, that means the driver did his job. And I think that can be explained pretty easily.
I got to tell you, Joe, you just impressed the hell out of me. I can't think of a better scenario than how the way you just laid that out. That is perfect.
All right,
I love that. I love the gun shoot.
Isn't that what you guys are doing, Gary? Isn't the best really, if we want to compare what you guys are doing to anything, we can compare it to a lot of stuff. But you guys are outlaws, and it's the Old West, and you're having a showdown, and 2 men enter, and 1 man leaves. And fortunately, in modern era, the guy who loses gets to go back and have a beer, and the guy who wins advances. Back in the Old West, it wasn't like that. But that's what you guys are doing.
No, you're exactly right. Very well put. And that may have changed this guy's thought a little bit, too.
I hope so. He's got other great points, though. Innovation.
No, he does.
There is none in Top Fuel Funny Car and Pro Stock. There may be small changes, but the casual observer cannot see this. How about a twin-turbo V6 Ford on a nitro funny car? This creates buzz in the community when there is conversations and arguments about which combination is best. There will be a lot of pushback from suppliers of existing parts. Think of carb suppliers to NASCAR and Sprint Cup engines that are no longer needed in 2012. Oh, NASCAR believes this is for the betterment of the sport. How about fuel injection, electronic fuel injection in Top Fuel? How about an electronic controlled clutch? How about traction control? How about two motors? I understand that NHRA is trying to keep a level playing field, but think back to the old days. TV Tommy with 4 engines. How about a hybrid electric gas in Pro Stock? Innovation used to be on the racetrack. Now it's in the production cars and doesn't come to the racetrack.
Doesn't do much for me. I'm kind of the guy that it's a nitro motor. It's got to be done a certain way. And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of 2 motors in a Top Fuel car. I think it's a waste of time. I think by the time somebody pioneered that, they'd never be competitive. I think it'd just be another car to go out there and oil down. I can appreciate what he's saying. Not for it. Big zero next to Gary SCELZI on that one.
How about this aspect of it? As I agree with his concept, but not his points.
Yes.
Which is, have you seen the photograph of the Army car with the closed cockpit? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, of course you did. So has every drag racing fan on the planet. It is probably the most circulated photographs of a new car in a long time. Why? Because it's visually different. You can look at it and say, hey, that's new, that's different. That's what the fans want. It doesn't have to be electronic or this or that. Right. They just want to be able to see something different about the two cars, I think.
But, again, and not playing the devil's advocate, but I am, NHRA has to watch when Bernstein came out with the Batmobile and Jim Head did what he did with his Oldsmobile, and, those guys went crazy. That was pretty cool. But I think what they're trying to do is limit the costs again, that the independent guys that don't have backing from Ford. I'll tell you kind of where this goes. Years ago, when I was out of a ride and I wanted to do a funny car thing, I was trying to work with Tony Stewart on having a Home Depot funny car, and so was John Force. And what pissed me off is I have a relationship with Ford through my truck body company here at SCELZI Enterprises, and I wanted to run a Ford Mustang, and I couldn't get one unless John Force said I could have one. And I felt, and I talked to Graham Light about it, and I said, this is bullshit. Why can Force be the only one that can have that? And why can Schumacher be the only one that can have a Dodge Stratus? That's bullshit. It's not fair to the competition. And I was told, well, that's the way it is and too bad and blah, blah, blah. And if you want to make a Mustang, you just go get a Mustang and you pull a mold off it. Well, we know that's not true. That's not going to happen in this day and age. So, I think, there should be some variations and some changes we can do. What Tony's done is basically a copy of what Gartless did years ago, obviously with a lot more technology. And I think it's a bitching thing, and I think it's a safety thing. And I think if they didn't have to buy it from Schumacher, you'd have a lot of teams wanting to jump on it. I think a lot of them won't because of their egos, which is obviously the wrong thing. Innovation, yeah. Motors and stuff like that, no. Bodies and aerodynamics, yeah. But I see NHRA's point. You got to keep a leash on that, or it's going to get so out of control that only the rich guys are going to lead again. Not that they don't now, but I don't know. I got to say we got to be very careful what we wish for there.
Everything is done through the lens of keeping the cost under control. And all we have to do is look at Formula One for how much it could cost, with Ferrari spending reportedly $400 million a year on just 2 cars. And a lot of that is through aerodynamics. So I do understand. One final point from Roger's email, which I think this one is something everybody can relate to regarding track viewing and spectating. How many years have they been using the same Winston Vision screen? Only one used at national events. If you're on the wrong side of the track, you cannot see it. How much do these units cost to rent per race? NASCAR at Watkins Glen has 7 screens, I think. How about units in the pro pits? So if you came down to watch the engines rebuilt between rounds, you do not miss on-track action. I know when I go to national events, I stay in the stands between first and second round because I do not want to have to rush back to see second round. How about upgrading the online app that works right? If you try to look at the qualifying runs, he's kind of putting these two together, which is the app and the thing. but basically saying making the spectator experience a little better with some upgraded technology.
Well, I'm all for that. The longest delay you're going to have is between first and second round. After second round, it goes a little quicker because you've got all those cars to run. So that's, if you're going to go watch cars get rebuilt, you want to watch between first and second round. Second, third, and final rounds, that's when they get quicker. But I agree. I don't know what it cost to have the Winston Vision at the time is what it was called. That's a great point. That's something that NHRA needs to look into. And I want you to know that I am going to go to NHRA with a lot of these things, and I don't know that I'm even going to get the time of day or what kind of response I'm going to get. I don't know that they're even going to, want to hear what I've got to say. But I am going to go to them. I have some friends in NHRA. I'm going to ask them these questions, and I'm sure it's going to come right down to cost. But, I get tired of hearing the same thing on that type of thing. We're not hustling this right. We're not doing something right. Why don't we get someone, whoever it may be, whether it be Jags or obviously not Coca-Cola, or maybe it could be Coca-Cola. They've got the full throttle deal. Maybe full throttle should have a couple of one on each side of the racetrack for us to see. Apps for the phone. That's going to get our young viewers interested to watch an engine be tore down or something they can go to, some kind of an animated game, something to do with drag racing to get the younger crowd into it and to keep us in tune in the stands. If we don't want to go walk down and fight the crowds to go through the pits, which is a big part of our sport, but I understand why you wouldn't want to do it at times. You don't want to lose your spot. I agree. Something needs to be looked at there. I think those are great ideas. I like the app thing. I like anything with electronics because the younger kids nowadays are so dependent on it. And in fact, I asked my two boys, one's 14 and one's 10, they race mini sprints and they go in the, with the dirt and like a sprint car type thing. I said, why don't you guys really turn on about the drag racing thing other than to go visit your friends you grew up with as kids? And they said, well, Dad, there's no games that we could really play that are a lot like it. There's no apps for the phone. And they said the same thing in one respect that this gentleman Roger's saying. So I think he's got good ideas and very valid points.
You have to have an app. I've been recommending and speaking with drivers, WFO Radio, we've had an app for 2 years now. And it's mandatory. You've got to have it. There should be news sites. Every driver should have one. It's just at some place that you've got to be. And yet, Gary, very few, which is a benefit to me because when people search WFO Radio or NHRA in the App Store, they get me and NHRA, which is great for me, but that's not the point. The point is you've got to go into these new territories and these new frontiers and the electronics and the phones. Back in my day and your day, kids would change the camshaft on their car. Now they change their phone. They jailbreak their phone. It's just a different world.
If you stay the same, you're going backwards, and we can't be stagnant. And unfortunately, it seems like that's kind of where we've been with our sport. There's no new innovation, and I just think we need to, as far as promoting and getting the word out there, and somehow we've got to do some stuff, and whatever it takes to get the right people there, we've got to do it. And that also means as drivers. But, I know a lot of the times I didn't want to do a lot of the media tours and things like that because I wanted free tickets for my time. And I know sometimes that was an issue. And I think that until these venues are sold out and you can't get another person to stand by the fence, give the driver 20 tickets or 50 tickets or whatever. And I know a lot of the fans out there think that all the drivers got free tickets. That was definitely something that never happened. I'm going to tell you, Sonoma and Pomona used to cost me in Vegas sometimes as much as $2,000 to get family members to be able to come down there that couldn't really afford it. And fortunately, I was pretty successful in the drag race thing and was able to make a lot of connections. And I had some vendors that got complimentary tickets that I was always also able to pull into from. But NHRA does not give the drivers free tickets, contrary to popular belief.
And there you have it, Gary. We got a lot of feedback. We answered a lot of questions. We kicked around the sport. This was a great bench racing session. I'll tell you what.
As always, Joe, and I look forward to continuing on with this. And again, thank you so much to the listeners and the people that go to Competition Plus for your news. I was overwhelmed and still am, and I want to keep this going. Let's make this thing even bigger yet. And again, I'm going to try to get some answers for everybody. Hopefully, some of you are going to be happy with what you hear. Some of you already know what you're going to hear. And some of them we probably won't hear anything about, but we're definitely going to try.
Absolutely. And if you didn't hear your email today, folks, don't worry. We've got a stack of emails. New ones are going to come in, but we're going to get to your emails. in upcoming episodes of the SCELZI Says. So definitely send those emails to Bobby at competitionplus.com. Of course, referencing Bobby Bennett, the editor of competitionplus.com. Bobby at competitionplus.com. Gary, excellent work. Great job as usual.
Joe, we'll hit it again next week.
Absolutely. He's Gary SCELZI, a 4-time NHRA champ. I'm Joe Costello from WFO Radio, and this is the SCELZI Says.